Hello everyone, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you today. My name is Madison Franks and I'm an animal science student at Oklahoma State University. I'm also an avid deer hunter and a cattle rancher. I have 2 Black Angus beef cows and I'm hoping to expand my herd at some point. And so, as you can imagine, I have a very vested interest in the topic of managing land for both wildlife and cattle because both of them are very important to me. Because of that, I'm going to tell you why you should manage your land for both cattle and deer, and how doing so can give you more bang for your buck while giving you more bucks, both this kind and this kind. So, to start off, good habitat for deer is better, more stable habitat for cattle. Even though they both use the same kind of land, however, deer and cattle use that land in very different ways and thus don't compete. Additionally, being able to lease your land out to deer hunters provides an additional source of income, which gives you more independence from the cattle market. So, you should manage your land for both deer and cattle, and I'm going to tell you why. But before I can do that, you have to know what good habitat looks like for both deer and cattle so that you can manage your land for both so that both can benefit. To start off, deer need more browse, which are trees and shrubs, and more forbs, which are weeds, than cattle do. However, they both benefit from these plants being present on a property. Having more browse allows for great thermal cover for cattle during both the winter and summer. As I'm sure most of us from the South know, a good shade tree on a hot summer day is invaluable, and for cattle it's no different. Good thermal cover is just as important during the winter, however, because cattle will expend the energy that we want them to use towards growing and producing on keeping themselves warm and maintaining their body heat. And so when we give them good wind cover and snow cover in the form of brush, they can use that in order to save that energy and in turn become more productive. Now, while it's very easy to see the benefits that cattle get from having more browse, they also gain a lot of benefits from having more forbs on a property as well. And while actually managing for weeds on your property seems kind of counterintuitive, having more forbs on your property allows for more nitrogen-fixing legumes to exist, which creates greater soil health for your grasses. Grasses and weeds both need different things from the soil, so they both take different things from it, but they also put different things back, and because of that, they can kind of feed off of each other and create a more healthy, stable habitat for the both of them, kind of like deer and cattle. Additionally, having a wider variety of plants on your property creates more biodiversity, which means that land is more stable during times of extreme weather. So, during a drought or during an extremely wet year, if you have a wider variety of plants on your property, the chances are much better that one of those kinds of plants is going to do really well under those conditions, and because of that, it will exist for you to feed your cattle and deer with so that you don't have to worry about them going hungry and about having to sell off part of your herd. And according to the Texas AgriLife Extension Service, even though having more browse and more forbs on your property does take up more room that grasses would normally use, having them there creates such better soil health that you more than make up for the quantity that you miss with quality, so the cattle still benefit. Now, even though deer and cattle both benefit from the same land, they use it in very different ways and thus don't compete. According to the Nobel Research Institute, about 80% of a cow's diet is grass. And while 80% is certainly a lot, it still leaves about 20% to be accounted for with forbs and browse, and so cattle absolutely need those plants too. However, deer are almost the exact opposite. Only 10% of their diet at any given time is made up of grass, and that is absolutely not by their choice. It's usually because they can't find anything else. And even though deer are indeed ruminants, their digestive system is designed for a much quicker, on-the-go lifestyle because they have to constantly keep moving in order to avoid predation. And thankfully that's something cows don't have to worry about as much. But because it is something that a deer must be concerned with at all times, they really cannot take the time to digest grass, and so their system really can't handle it and they avoid eating it at all costs. Because of that, deer are an excellent source of the weed control that they consume. And so even though you are managing for more weeds on their property, deer are constantly eating them and constantly knocking them back. And so they don't have to get out of control, and then you don't have to worry about dealing with an over healthy weed population on your own time. Additionally, having a healthy deer population on your property allows you to have an extra source of income by leasing it out to deer hunters. According to Texas Parks and Wildlife, the average deer lease can range anywhere from $300 per hunter per year to $12,000. And I don't know about you, but I could certainly stand to have $12,000 added to my yearly income. That is not something I would turn down. And even though most deer leases aren't going to go for $12,000, and that is somewhat of an extreme example, with the management techniques we've talked about here, managing 4 deer that will fetch a higher price like that is very, very possible. And even if you don't manage to get to that $12,000 point, if you still lease to several hunters for $3,000 or $4,000, that absolutely adds up, and it's extra money that you don't have to put that much more additional work into outside of managing the land. And once you get that started, it mostly takes care of itself. More than that though, providing a way for people to lease land and come on your property to hunt gives them an opportunity to have a very positive experience to animal agriculture that they wouldn't normally get. As surprising as it may seem, quite a few hunters are from larger cities, and because only 1% of our population is involved with agriculture, we need all of the people who support agriculture and who understand it as we can get, and leasing land out to hunters is an excellent way to do this. I know personally a lot of my fondest memories are from spending time hunting wildlife on a ranch, and that wouldn't be possible if people didn't lease their land out for hunters to come. I know all of us probably have really good experiences with wildlife or a favorite memory with wildlife at some point, and if you could, I would love for you to share your favorite memory involving wildlife in the comment section below this video so we can talk about that and discuss it. It is very, very important to me, and it's important to a lot of people out there, and by giving them the chance to have those kinds of experiences, we are gaining support for animal agriculture that we wouldn't normally have. So, in conclusion, you should manage your land for both deer and cattle, because doing so provides a better, much more stable habitat for cattle and deer. Having that broad variety of plants on your property that both need creates a much healthier habitat that can be much more productive for cattle. Even though they both need the same kinds of plants, they don't use them in the same way, and thus will not be stealing food out of each other's mouths and won't limit each other's populations that much in the broad scheme of things. And additionally, having an extra source of income from deer hunters allows you to have a more stable income and add money to your income that you wouldn't normally have, and thus lets you be a little more independent from the cattle market. So, in conclusion, manage your land for both deer and cattle. You won't regret it. I know I haven't. And once you do, you will never go back. Thank you very, very much for the opportunity to speak to you today. If anyone has any questions, I will leave my email in the description of this video, and I look forward to receiving your questions if you have any. Thank you very, very much.